Hey everyone, again welcome back. This is the fourth video in this series, and here we will learn about that how you will write the test cases for the methods that you have wrote in the previous session. Okay, so this will give you a lot of information about like how to write tests. Okay, so I will give you a brief explanation so that you guys can understand and you can just use the similar kind of stuff in your project as well. Okay, so see you all in the session. Okay guys, so let's get started again. So we are again at the project board. So for our IPyNB renderer project. So we have done the in the like this was in progress. We have already done most of the steps. Okay. So now let's look into this. Okay. So we will move on to this to our in progress. Now let's see like what you have to do. We have to use black like to format this code. Okay. Let me edit this. Okay. Let's call it as use black to format my code and also this. So update the comment and then yeah. So we have to do this first, right? Use the black to format this code. So once we will do all these steps, and I will keep it aside and I will just make a track. So we will do a my pytest, then unit test, and then integration, and then on so on. So let's see okay how it works. So go back to the project section. Okay, so I think let me just again open the project here. So we have I think this one, right? So let me close this, open a terminal. Okay, it's already there, it's open. Yeah. So like first of all, let me just again like format this. So custom exception if it is there, so I will just use a format document, so it will ask me to which one I should use, although it will by default it will may have selected pytest, this one that is black. Okay, yeah, it is. You can see at the bottom, and I think my cam will be blocking you, so let me again go off so that you can have a full screen to enjoy. So okay, so I will just say here that I want to use black. Okay, and to do the formatting, so it will ask you to install it or something like install using pip, but as you can see we already have, so we don't need this part. Okay, so again we will again try it, format using black, so it should be there by default. Yeah, so you can see it has done a formatting. I will just save it, and then again I will go to the logger part. So in the logger as well I will just go and write there this format this. Okay, format the document using black. Okay, so it will automatically format this, like it will just use an auto pip style, so you will see some things here, right? So I will just save it again, and then I will go to YouTube that I've created. So I will again make it, I will just format the document. Okay, so yeah, so you can see that it will just add a space here and all those things like spacings, and it will like try to cover everything, right? So again I will kick it, just make it save, right? So that means this rendering part is done. Okay, and if you want to do your tests as well, so in the tests, like whenever I will be adding, so I will use black also to format that. That is going to be a very good idea to do this. Okay, so now let me commit this, and also like in the readme.md file also I have added the project board. Okay, and the setting session should not be a part of your, it should not be a part of your so I will add it to get ignore. Okay, and now I will, first of all I will add this as a commit. So like project board link added, I will commit this separately, commit it, and then I will go to this custom exception. So this is actually slightly modified, or these all of them are by black, using black we have like formatted. I will guess formatting done with black. So I will just commit this change, and then git ignore, we have added ignored VS Code settings. It should be done. Okay, or what we will do is we will simply like do this. Okay, let me just go to the git ignore part. I will just simply at the bottom I will just simply mention this. Okay, just ignore everything in .vs code. Okay, so that, yeah, so ignore VS Code settings, .vs Code settings. So I will commit this again, and that's also I will sync the changes. Now let's go to the project board, right? So let's go back to the project board we have. So we have done about the using the black format code, we have done it. Now lint it with mypy. So again go back to this. So for that we will simply write like linting with the mypy. Okay, mypy. So mypy, and then I will just mention that okay, source, I want to just check if there is any type error or anything. So it should like not cause any issue, but okay, it says that error, missing return statement. Okay, so let's go back again, just check if it is a return statement missing. So yes, here it is there, but we don't want it to like return everything every time. Okay, So that's not a problem. Okay, missing a return statement. Line number 46 it says, right? Okay, it says at line number 46. Let's see. Okay, so as you can see that it's giving us an error, right? Like it says that, okay, missing a return statement, but it is not somewhere it is saying that, okay, where exactly it is missing a like any resource. So let's assume that, okay, it's right as of now. Let's assumption, just make it as an assumption, and then we will reveal that, okay, in pytest that it will be revealed that, okay, why we should focus on that. So I will not check mark that, okay, we have done this step. Now let's look into the next step, that, okay, what is our next step. So it's about like creating a unit test. Okay, so let's create a unit test, and also after that we will do an integration test, and then we will test it with pytest. So let's skip this level as of now. Okay, that is equivalent with mypy, and we will check this again. Okay, let's go back again to the code, and let's write our unit test for this. Yeah, so let's go to the test section, and I will write a unit test, and here I will just, either you can leave it as it is, or maybe you can simply drop it, or just simply create a file, new file here, and I will just test the YouTube functionality. So let's call it as a test yt.py. Okay, that is for a unit test for YouTube functionality, and here we will write the code for testing this YouTube file. Now here, so this is for the YouTube functionality. So in this example, what I will do is I will simply again, let's say, like import the pytest. Okay, import pytest, and then we will write like from ipyrender import. Since let's see, now let me talk about the unit test as well. So since I'm going to check the individual function, that, okay, which is functioning individually, so I will write here like get time info, and then after that I will just write import like from again ipynb renderer dot, I will get the custom exception and import the invalid URL exception. So we will make use of all of this. Okay, so let's just for define some like ID good ideas. Okay, so ID URL ID for, like, let's say it's about the good data URL, good URL data. Let's call it as a good URL data, which will simply return me a success. Okay, so I will just define it as a list here. So I will say that, okay, what is my input and what is my response. Okay, so here I will write the like some URLs and then their response. Okay, so as you know that, okay, this get time info is actually, it's a, okay, so first of all you can see that it is not importing directly. So let's go back again to this, and it is saying that, okay, it is only one thing that I've imported from that. So let's me also import the other part that is about the get time info, so that this error will be gone. Okay, I think if you just click now, you should be able to go there. So in that functionality you will see that get time info, right? So it says that it is returning me an integer, it is taking an input as a string. So, okay, so I will put a list of strings which will succeed here. Okay, so I already have written this, so let me copy paste this here. Okay, now see why I'm writing all this at once, because like I will just simply write one function which will test all of this. Okay, so if you, in order to like any of the like pytest should discover this test, it should start with test. So I will simply say that, okay, get id like, or get time info, so test for this. Okay, and you will take URL as an input and response as well, and it should do an assertion test here. Okay, so it should simply write assert, and then I will write here get time info, and I will take URL as an input, and it should be equal to the response. Okay, but how it will take all this data at once? So for that I will write a decorator pytest has. So pytest mark parameterize. So what it says that in parameterize we need to pass that, okay, what is my URL input? Okay, what are my inputs? Okay, so I need to tell this as a string, these are my input, and what I want to take as an input as a, so I will take all this good URL data as an input to it. So what it will do is will try to run this test for all this, and it will take one by one at a time, right? So let's try this with the pytest directly. Okay, so pytest -v. So if I do this, it should be able to find this particular unit test. Okay, and it should not like create any issues. So let's try this. So I will try. So you can see it has passed all the 5 tests. Like why it is saying 5 tests is because it is testing this as well. So which is, we have done it as an empty test. So what I will do is I will drop these tests. I don't need it at all right now. And yeah, and in the integration also we don't need this as of now. So I will just delete them, integration and all. And I will just go back again. If I try this run test, so you should be able to see here that okay, it is running all those tests, 3 tests passed. Okay, so now here let's go back again to the test of the YouTube. So we have tested for the good data, and now let's create a file similarly for the bad data as well. So there will be certain bad data that I have kept it here as a list. I will just print it here. So now this will be another input, right? And it should raise an exception whenever I will pass it, okay, to this get time info. Because why I'm saying is that because in this one, as you can see, there is a 42 second which is there already. In this there is no, that means it should return 0. Here also it should not be, it should 0 completely. And in all of these, this line you get when you copy directly from your top of your browser, right? This line you get whenever you will run it as an input, right? When you will run it as an input, and like it will come whenever, let's say if you have given someone that okay, start time is this, and then even they open it in browser, so this will be a next URL link. The bad data link will be like, let's say if I have added some few extra, like as you can see that this is the actual, right, actual link with the 11 numbers of it should have this ID, YouTube ID, which is of length 11, and you can see it is of extended here. And here you can see that I have with and t. Okay, so this should all generate an exception, because if I'm using without this, and t should not be there, right? And apart from this, in exception here also you will see that I'm using double equals to, so you will not find this kind of URL. So these are bad URLs. Okay, so to do this, and these all should generate an exception. So do this again test. I will again go to definition, and I will create it again a new one more test. Okay, info, and this is about the failed test. Okay, this should fail, right? So again I will just go for this input, parameterize it with this, but here it should take the bad data. Okay, and as you can see that it should not have any of the like response. So I will just drop this, and it will just simply feed these inputs URL. Okay, now if you want to check whether this is going to generate an like an exception, so what you have to do is you have to write a context manager here which says that pytest with the pytest raises, and what it should raise, it should raise an invalid URL exception whenever I will pass this URL. Okay, so let's call this again a function, and I will pass it to this URL. So it should always raise this exception, right? So let me try again, and I will just write pytest-v, so it should be able to find this failure. So previously we have seen, okay, so it says that it did not raise this exception. Okay, that means one result has failed. What is that result? Let's check for that. So this is a YouTube video which got failed. So that means we have some issue with this link. Okay, so let's go back again to check. So that's what I was saying in the last session, right? So don't get too happy that everything is working fine. So as you can see, this is also not working fine, right? So why this is an issue? So let's check this into our let's verify this, right, in our manual test. So here I will go back again, and let me copy this part, right? Let's copy the get info part. So I will copy this totally till yeah, so it should work, but let's try this here. Okay, so we can import the, so from ipynb renderer dot custom exception import invalid URL exception. So it should be done. So we will, let me just remove this part so that you guys can see all the details. Now here we can also call for a logger as well. So from ipynb renderer logger import logger. Okay, so now let's run this, and we will call this function again. Okay, that is get time info. For that URL, so get time info, and here I will just mention that URL that got failed. So let me again make it up, and let's see that okay, what it failed. So this is on this, it failed, right, on this URL. So I will just mention it. So you can see that normally if you observe any of the URLs, so you will see that it's not going to have a double equals to anywhere, right? It will just have an equals to sign there. So if I do this, it's working absolutely fine, right? It says that okay, everything is absolutely working fine, and video start has 22 it is giving us, but it should raise an exception because this is not a correct line. So as you can see here, I am doing the split, but it should give me like output only, it should have a 3 values, right? If I go for a split val here, so it should, again if I run it, so it should give me that it should give me only 3 values, but it is giving me 4. So that's where the issue is, right? So if I can track this, if I can help my function to deal with this, so it will resolve my issue, right? So for that, what I will do is like before here only, okay, so I will write again one more if condition, that okay, if the length of the split value, if it is greater than 3, then it's going to raise an issue. Okay, then you should raise an invalid URL exception. Okay, if I do this, then this code should raise an error, right? That means that was the issue. Okay, that's where we haven't looked into the previous session, right? It looks flawless, that everything is working fine. So this was the major issue, right? So let me change this now, right? So here I the same thing that I have done it here, that is this line of code. If I add it to my before I will go into this loop, I will just check this split val as well, that whether it is greater than 3. That means if it is 4, that means there is more number of equals to, and it should only have not more than 3, right? The split, after splitting, the length should not be more than 3. That means the equals to sign should be only 2. So now if I run a pytest, it should work fine. Okay, let's check. Okay, so you can see quickly that yes, it worked fine. Now it is able to check this invalid URL exception as well. So that means it will work for that URL as well. So that means we have run the unit test successfully, right? Now it is time for us to write integration test. Why? Okay, so the question is that, okay, why I am not doing the unit test for this one? The reason is because it is calling the another function, right? So like it's kind of like we are having an integration here. That means I'm calling this another function from this function. So that means I need to check if this function is working fine, this unit function is working fine, that means this should also work fine. Okay, so like means we have tested this, right? Get time info is fine, so this should also work absolutely great. Okay, so let's write now an integration test now. So let's go back to the project board again, and I will just tick mark that, okay, yes, I have written a unit test which is working fine. Now again, go back here. So here we have, so we can write it, or we can comment this till this part, that okay, let me format this also so that it will work. It will be absolutely right here. Yeah. So now, so this unit test is working fine, right? So we can commit these changes that, like first of all, let's delete these, okay, which is already removed. So I will just deleted this file. So I will just call it as delete. Let's keep it just del, okay, and then manual test pynb. So here we have this verified or manual test done for get time info. Okay, so I will just commit this manual test is done in here, and here I will say that imported get time info for a quick import. Okay, this is called, I will call it as a deep import also, like it helps us to like don't go and chain the number of imports here by using dots. And here we will just say that updated after unit test, and in the last, that is test yt, so I will just simply write here that test case unit test for renderer for EYT get time info done. So that's all. So okay, let me close everything here. So so we have done this for, right? Like now let's go back again to our integration tests, right? So in integration section, I will add one more file here that is called as test, and this is about YouTube functionality, so uyt.py. Okay, and I will here again call few important aspects of it. So let's look for an integration test. So here we will import again pytest, then we will import, that is from ipynb renderer, import the render YouTube video. Okay, and then again from ipynb dot custom exception, import invalid URL exception. Now again, what I will do is either you can write a function or you can write a class as well. Let's say if you want to use a class, okay, to group things together, so you can even, so this class should also be starting with test. Okay, otherwise it will not be able to find it out. Okay, so it's whether it's a convention that is used, okay, in pytest. So video renderer, so this is test yt YouTube video renderer. Okay, and in this one again we will define certain like bad test success data and like bad data. So I already have written, so I will, let's define them as a class variable here. Okay, that is the class variable without even instructor constructor here. So these will be used, okay, class variables. So you can see first one is having a success data and the other one is having a bad data, so it should raise an exception for us. So again, here in this one I'll use again pytest parameterize, and here I will just input URL and response. Okay, and here I will pass the data as like URL test success data. This is going to be an input, and let's define a method here that is about testing, like render it, and let's call it as a success. That means this will lead us to success. Okay, and again, as you can see here, I have input as a URL and response, right? So I should pass this, and but you're seeing that, okay, it's a part of your class, so you can mention it has a self class. Okay, self keyword should be there, and then after that I will just use an assertion again. So assertion says that, and I will call that function that is about like render YouTube video. So in this YouTube video, whenever I will pass this URL, it should always return me a response as a success, right? So because as you can see, these are three types of like input data that you will pass on here, right? So this should be present here. Okay, and now this is fine here, right? So this is about success, right? So now again, if I run this pytest, so it should add on to this integration test as well. So let me save it as well. Let's run this. So it should not create any issue. Let's see. So you can see 10 test pass, and you can see it is a part of the first, you will see integration test ran, right? So this is also there. So that worked absolutely fine. Now if I add one more thing that is about pytest parameterize and URL, okay, that is about the bad response. So I will URL bad, like URL test bad data. Okay, and again you will define one more method that is about, it is about testing render failed. Okay, failure. So here it will take self as well as URL as an input, and here again what I will do is, again I will say that, okay, with pytest dot raises, okay, if it raises an invalid URL exception whenever I should call these bad data. Okay, so render YouTube video, whenever I'll pass this URL, so it should raise a bad, it should raise an error. So let's try again, pytest -v. Okay, so you can see some of the test has failed, right? So these tests have failed. What could be the reason? So as you can see, these are having some underscores. Okay, so that means this validation error was there, and it should say that, okay, it is having an ensure error. That means like return value of it is having is of type, it is returning me an untype, it is not returning something. Again, there is no error is going on here. That means what could be the reason? So here in the errors, let's verify this. Okay, in the errors it says that it is returning a none type, okay, but it should be a string. Okay, that it should be a success or it should be a raising an exception, but it is returning a none type. That means it did not raise any error, right? So let's go back again and check this function, right? So as you can see that if I like here, if I say that URL is none, that is absolutely fine. Okay, and then we have said that, okay, if this input is none, so it should raise an issue. That means if this data which published date should be it, if it is not none, then only I should perform. But I did not wrote any else condition for this. That means what if it is none? That means, so in that case it should raise an exception, right? So as you can see that it is missing here, there is nothing like that. So I will write here that else, if that is none, that means the data is not found. That means that obviously it is not present. So I will raise here an invalid URL exception. Okay, and that's all. If I do this, so we think that, okay, our test should pass. That was a major issue. That, okay, if what if the condition is that if none is found, so I should raise an exception, and I was not doing that. So that was a major issue which was tackled by just adding this. Okay, just by just adding this invalid URL exception in the else condition. Okay, so that means if I success has passed, so I think if I go back to the my pysrc, so it was throwing us an error that, okay, there is a no return statement. So let's see that, okay, if it passes or not. It passes, right? The reason is that we have written an if condition, but we did not wrote the else condition, that okay, what if the success is not there, what if this condition fails, so there should be an else condition. Because if this if this condition is not satisfied, that means there is nothing. Okay, that means it should it will return nothing, right? Okay, and it will not even, since there was no error here, that means even it will not raise an exception. So that was an open-ended thing, that okay, that means in that case it will return simply nothing. So that is why we were getting an error here, that it was not returning anything, right? And I will show you here again. Let me just again comment this out so that I can show you that. So if I again run it, so it will say there was a missing return statement, right? Because it is not fulfilling this criteria, else condition. And again, if I do this src, so you will see that okay, it says that everything is passed. That means now we have done it, right? So you can see that is why it is important. That is why it is important to run tests. Okay, that is why it is important, because we as a developer think that we write absolutely good code, that is no doubt, but we may leave this kind of minor things, right, that we did in the previous examples. So let's go back again to the project part, and I will say that okay, linting with mypy is done, and even creating an integration test is also done, right? And we were even limited to test the code as well. So pytest is running fine. So now let's again go back to the VS Code and do a tox test. So for running the tox test, I will just simply write tox, and it will do all my jobs for this. Okay, so like as you can see, it is creating a, first of all, Python 3.7 package. Okay, but I think if it is installed already, so it will not be an issue, it should directly run it. Okay, as you can see, it's already there. Okay, now it is, see, you can see that it is we haven't done the formatting again, right? So that is why it is saying the trailing white spaces at these spaces, and I think it will go for the others as well. Okay, but the tests are passing. Okay, so first integration test got passed, before that unit test was passed, so 7 unit test and 10 integration test. And this warning we are getting is from the flake 8, right? So from flake 8 we are getting this warning, so we can, these are the warnings that we can rectify it. So once this 3.9 phase is finished, so let's wait for it. Okay, so this means it says that okay, everything is succeeded properly. So now let's also verify that part as well. So we can just modify it and we can check it like where it is exactly. So you can see that it is in youtube.py. So it is having some extra spaces. So let me remove that, format the documents using black. Again, this you should make a habit, right? So that there should be no issue. Now again, let me check whether it is there or not. Let's go back. Okay, so let's see that if you just move here, so you can see there is a space. So let's remove that space. Here also it's there is a space is there. Again, let's go back again, go back. Okay, and let's again remove this space. Extra space should not be there, right? So that's what it is saying. Okay, I think now it should not create any issue. Let's again rerun the tox test so that we should not get that warning. Okay, so let's wait. Okay, so if it is not, yeah, so you can see the first is on itself is a successful, and now I think it will succeed with everything, right? So let it run. Let's see it delay the end. Okay, so I think you can, as you can see here, that the test is being passed, everything is now okay, and even you will see there is no stats getting present here for your flake 8 test. Okay, and even the mypy test that is about type test, type linting is also, again, it is successful. So everything is fine. Okay, and now these all things that you can also do it from the here on the left hand side, you will see testing. Again, I have just shown you before as well. So if I click on, if you say that okay, there is nothing is present, so make sure that okay, their setting is active. So you can go to this cog sign and then click on settings here and just search for pytest. Okay, so make sure it is enabled. Okay, enable testing using pytest. If you do this, so I think you should be able to see it in a moment. Yeah, so you can see that it is available. So you can see that from here also you can make and run tests. Okay, so you can just simply run it again and it should be able to, if I refresh it, so it will again start running the test. Okay, so and if you go to your files, respective files, so you can click on this, so you will see that there is a tick mark in front of your pytest whichever you do. So if I again rerun it, so it should be able to do this from here as well, individual test. and similarly you can do it for others. Okay, so if you see a green tick, that means that specific test is being passed. So that is very interesting feature of this VS Code, and similarly I think you will be able to also find it on your like PyCharm as well if you're using PyCharm, right? So right now we have done the test as everything, even Tox is running successfully. So let's commit the changes. Okay, so we will say, let's go this, and we can say add else to raise exception. Okay, and so let's commit this, and here we can say that added a, like it's an integration test. Okay, so added integration test. So I'll commit this change. Okay, and now again let's go back to our project. Okay, so you can see that everything is done from now. Tox is also doing fine. Now let's push the changes and let's see that, okay, how GitHub does. Okay, let's go back again to your project, and here we will just let me close everything from here, and let's sync the changes. Okay, so and again go back to our project section, and let's see that how it works. So let's go back to our project, and once you should be able to see the actions. Last file is add integration test. So let's look into this. Okay, so you will see all the 6 jobs started, and if it is giving you a success here, everything, so that means everything is intact, and otherwise we will look into the errors, right? Okay, so let's wait for it, let it finish. Okay, once you see all the 6 green ticks, that means everything is worked fine. Okay, so as you can see, the first build is passed, and again 3.7 next build is also passed. Let's wait for some more time. Okay, so to finish all. Okay, so now as you can see that Ubuntu tests are done, and Windows first test is done. Okay, now usually we have observed that, okay, like whenever Windows is done, so it takes time, okay, for Windows. So only last test is less, just it's left. Okay, so this is an amazing feeling. As you can see that whenever we see all text, that means it's worked well, right? So now what we can do is we can simply like let's go to the project section. So we have pushed the changes to the GitHub and everything is intact, right? So that means our testing of YouTube is also fine, that this worked perfectly fine. Now let's go back again. Let's go to our in progress things. So this is also worked absolutely fine. That means we are ready to close this. So what I can do is it's done. So either I can close it from here, close it with comment, or I can do it directly. So let me comment it. Okay, let's comment this and close with the comment. So once I do this, so this issue will be closed, and I can reopen it as well. Let's say if there is an issue, so I can reopen it anytime. So as you can see on the board, you will see there is one part is already done, right? So similarly, let's look into the test YouTube rendering functionality. So here also our testing is done. We have posted to the all. We have checked all the steps. Okay, so we can just write it here, done. Okay, and I will just comment it, and I will manually do the close here. Okay, so that's this. I will do a drag here. Okay, so in this way you can see that we have completed this as well, and yeah, I think it should turn into a blue sign as well. Let's see. If not, so we can check it here. Okay, so we did not close the issue, although it is done, so we can close this issue as well from here. So it should now, if I refresh it, it should be able to, yeah, so you can see that it is now tick marked. So now next thing that we will pick up is about this 003, that is about creating a Python packet. So till now I hope you have got the general idea that, okay, how you can like create a functionality and then test this as well, right? So I hope this session is useful, and see you all in the next session. Thank you all.